Hey everybody, I'm Jay, welcome to Square Pegs, and today I wanted to go back to my games I keep coming back to series, specifically today talking about one of my favorite all-time handhelds, the Gameboy Advance. There are so many incredible games on this platform, and up first we have one of my all-time favorites, Advance Wars. When I stop and I think about the Game Boy Advance, one of the genres that really solidified itself as one of my favorites to play were tactical strategy games. And while there were a ton of excellent options on the Game Boy Advance, none for me stood taller than Advance Wars. Advance Wars puts you in charge of the Orange Star Army on a quest to defend your homeland against your nation's longtime antagonists, the Blue Moon Nation, eventually as well as against the armies of Green Earth and Yellow Comet. While Advance Wars is a game that has its tongue firmly planted in its cheek, it nonetheless offers some absolutely incredible gameplay options, with a deep environmental defensive system that's a part of every level you play on, an ever-changing and player-alterable economic system that allows you to gain new troops as you make more money depending on what cities you've occupied, supply chain simulation causing your troops to need to return to base or to APCs to resupply their ammunition and fuel, and all-terrain combat on land, sea, and air. And if that was all the game offered, it would be plenty, because the gameplay on this title is king, but I'd argue that what makes Advance Wars so truly memorable are its incredible cast of characters. There's Andy, the plucky upstart CO who is the unlikely linchpin for the entire worldwide conflict in the game, Max, the straightforward and upfront combat expert, Sammy, the infantry expert, and all the opposing army COs. It's truly a masterpiece of a title, with easy to pick up and understand gameplay mechanics, but truly challenging aspects to master as you face a variety of troops, vehicles, and CO strengths and weaknesses in your ever-evolving worldwide war. It's legitimately one of my favorite games of all time, and something I've come back to countless times over the years. Kind of like our next game on the list, one of the single greatest role-playing games of all time. There are few RPGs more suited to the portability of the Game Boy Advance than Golden Sun, which is especially ironic as it began life conceptualized as a title for the Nintendo 64. Developed by Camelot Software, Golden Sun puts you in control of Isaac, Garrett, Ivan, and Mia, four teenage magic adepts who rose to magical prominence after a tragic storm was caused by the game's protagonists, triggering the magical trap in Mount Aleph. With a signature Camelot-style visual identity that feels familiar enough to those that have played the Shining 4 series, the game decisively makes its own mark by diving headlong into RPG gameplay and a magical fantasy world. Rather than leaning into Camelot's roots by making the game a tactical strategy game, they instead relied on random monster encounters and a deep magical system based around four elemental powers. Venus grants control of rocks and plants, Mars grants control over fire and heat, Jupiter grants wind and electricity, and Mercury grants water and ice. And while these elements allow for a traditional combat usage, one of the things that Golden Sun does remarkably well, it ties all those magical abilities into environmental manipulation as well. Spells you learn in the game will allow you the ability to return to different areas and cast a particular spell to grant access to a previously blocked part of the environment, allowing for a balanced and logical return to areas you'd previously explored, effectively disguising the grind inherent to so many JRPGs of the time. It, sadly, is a series that has fallen dormant after four fantastic adventures between the GBA and DS, and one I truly wish that Nintendo would remaster or revisit on modern hardware. I really think this would do incredibly well on the Switch. Kind of like what they did for our next game on the list, bumping it up from the NES to probably its perfect version on the Game Boy Advance.
Super Mario Brothers 3!
There really isn't a whole hell of a lot that one needs to say about Super Mario Advance 4 Super Mario Bros. 3. Take what is arguably the best adventure from Mario for the NES, use the updated visual engine from the Super Mario All-Stars port on the SNES, add in Mario Brothers as a menu option, put in the voice of Charles Martinet, and embrace the truly wackadoo nature of what is decidedly Nintendo by incorporating the Nintendo e-reader to expand the game by adding bonus stages, and you've effectively offered the single best version of Super Mario Bros. 3 there is. If you're somehow not aware of how important Super Mario Bros. 3 is, you're still feeling its effects some 30 plus years after its initial release. Wide-ranging power-ups beyond just mushrooms and fire flowers? That was Mario 3. A world map to explore, to choose your path through a level, or to find power-ups or bonus stages? Super Mario Bros. 3. Creative bosses that eschew just using Bowser at the end of every level and incorporated the Koopalings? SMB 3. Boo houses, auto-scrolling levels, chain chomps, dry bones, picking up Koopa shells, sliding down a hill, airships, jumping on a boss's head 3 times to defeat them? All of that started in Super Mario Bros. 3, and all are things we are still experiencing in Mario games to this day. While Super Mario Bros. 2 is my personal favorite, there is no denying how ridiculously important Super Mario Bros. 3 is, and how ridiculously influential it was on not only the Mario franchise as a whole, but far and away was a megaton bomb with its impact on the gaming industry. To call it only one of the best GBA games of all time would be a disservice. Super Mario Bros. 3 is one of the best games of all time, period, across every console generation. Oh, and before we move on to our next game on the list, one last secret influence. This sound for the warp whistle? Yeah, that's an Ocarina of Time. Seriously, check this out. And while Ocarina wasn't on the GBA, we sure did get an incredible Zelda adventure. It's just a bit on the small scale. I truly wish we still lived in the timeline where Capcom had carte blanche to make incredibly innovative Zelda games like we had back on the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. This isn't really nostalgia talking. I played the Minish Cap briefly upon its initial release, but my main exposure to the game came a decade plus later when it was released as a title on the WiiU Virtual Console. Taking the signature gameplay experiences out of the equation, yes, you have a top-down view, yes, you explore Hyrule, and yes, you get additional items to help you on your quest as you fight through dungeons. Where Minish Cap really excels is when it leans into the MacGuffin of the game, the Minish Cap itself. A talking hat named Eslo. Okay, well, Eslo used to be a Minish sage, but he got turned into a hat by the big bad guy of this game, Vaati. It's a whole thing. And Eslo granted Link the ability to transform from his normal size into the size of the Minish using portals throughout Hyrule, opening up exploration and puzzle-solving opportunities. And while the MacGuffin is great, where Minish Cap truly excels is by leaning heavily into the hardware capabilities that the crazy creative minds from Capcom and Flagship utilized to make some of the most memorable and exciting dungeons since A Link to the Past. Not to be forgotten either is that Minish Cap tied directly into the Four Swords games. While it dropped after Four Swords Adventures on the GameCube, Minish Cap actually embraced the rather fluid nature of the Zelda timeline and told the origin story of the Four Sword weapon and Vaati, making it the opening story in the Four Swords trilogy of games. It's a truly incredible adventure worthy of the Zelda mantle, and Minish Cap is an imaginative and exciting adventure that embraces its roots, but also wasn't afraid to make its own indelible mark on the legacy of Zelda overall. Much like our next game, a tactical strategy masterpiece. I am forever indebted to Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones, as it was my introduction into the Fire Emblem universe, outside of like Roy and Marth and Smash Brothers. I had previously played Advance Wars and Advance Wars 2, and I was eager to get more turn-based tactical strategy games on my GBA, and while there was no shortage of them on the console, few were as well polished and impactful as Fire Emblem. And while I missed out on the original GBA release here in the States, Sacred Stones was something I lucked into, scoring it for under $5. There was a magical Kmart in Oviedo, Florida that my friend Corey and I used to go to frequently, and their Game Boy Advance games were almost always on sale for deep discount. And one day I got lucky and found Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones. Eager to play it, I was immediately whisked away to a fantastical fantasy world with the same familiar tactical strategy I had grown to adore from Advance Wars, but this time involving amazing knights, dragons, and magical creatures. And this also introduced me to the concept of weapon degradation in strategy games, something we still experience in Fire Emblem games today. Resupplying your armies meant going to shops and outfitting their kit in between battles, as well as changing classes and learning new jobs to advance their capabilities. It was and is a joy to experience, and is still one of the benchmark games I use to measure strategy games against, because it just got so much perfectly right. And while by today's standards it's a bit clunky and kind of muffs a few aspects that were later perfected in subsequent titles, it's still something I love and consider one of the best games in the series. A fitting second entry to the franchise on the GBA, kind of like our next title. I think taking a major risk in reimagining your initial game in a franchise is a bold approach, and one that can frequently blow up in your face, but Nintendo R&D 1 did something truly magical with the brilliant Metroid Zero mission. It captured the sense of exploration and wonder the original NES game provided, cleaned it up considerably, and took that story arc of who Samus was as a character and turned it completely on its head. Zero Mission tells the basic story arc of the first Metroid game. You land on Zebes, you explore the planet, fight Ridley and Kraid, take out Mother Brain, but then Zero Mission adds expanded gameplay options, multiple quality of life improvements, and a killer graphical overhaul that improves everything about the original release. There's also areas in Zero Mission not present in the original game, as well as numerous gameplay modes that unlock as you beat the game under different circumstances. I think the chief complaint that most people could have about Zero Mission is that it's a little short, but I think that's why it's such a perfect handheld game. By having all the different save options throughout the game as you're playing, you're able to kind of pick it up and play it for 5 minutes, save, and then go about your business. It's an excellent version of an adventure game on a handheld console. While Zero Mission added just a bit to an original concept, our next game completely altered a familiar gameplay aesthetic and made something new and unique for a familiar gaming mascot. I remember when I first played the Mega Man Battle Network series, I was pretty convinced I was going to hate the game because how dare Capcom alter what I felt was gospel gameplay elements from Mega Man. 2D platforming, that was all I wanted. And yeah, we're going to conveniently ignore the fact that at the time I loved and still love to play the Mega Man Legends and Tron Bonne games, so popping into Battle Network I was, to say the least, skeptical of what it could be. And to say I was blown away was an understatement. Here was this absolutely gorgeous game featuring just familiar enough versions of characters I was familiar with, blending a card battling system with tactical action gameplay and strategy and land grab elements. I was absolutely floored with how incredible this game was, and the gameplay experience to this day is some of my absolute favorite on the Game Boy Advance. Everything about this game I enjoyed, from the memorable characters, creative usage of the Mega Man IP, to offer something completely new and different from what we'd experienced before, to exciting gameplay. Everything in Mega Man Battle Network not only hit, it absolutely stuck the landing for a perfect 10 experience, at least in my eyes. And truth be told, this game is a stand-in for the entire franchise. I've loved each and every entry that I've played, up to and including the GameCube release that blends platforming elements with the characters we're familiar with from the Battle Network franchise. I'm truly so stupidly excited that we're getting a Battle Network Legacy Collection released next year, as there's so much that this series offers that I truly believe most people would enjoy this franchise. And seriously, kudos and applause to Capcom for utilizing their familiar IP to offer something completely new and unique, much like our next entry from Nintendo. Mario makes a return to the list, and this time he's bringing the big ape Donkey Kong with him. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is one of those games that cleverly expands upon something that was previously offered generations prior on the original Game Boy. If you ever played Donkey Kong on the OG cream spinach Game Boy, you know that after you run through the normal Donkey Kong levels we're all familiar with, the game completely opened up and added creative puzzle platforming environments for you to work your way through. And Mario vs. Donkey Kong takes that concept and perfects it, adding special maneuvers, creative puzzles, and brilliant level designs for you to work your way through as everyone's favorite Italian plumber, or I guess in this game, everyone's favorite Italian toy maker like Geppetto. Gameplay tasks you with making your way through multiple levels where you need to collect presents and keys to collect Mini Mario toys, followed by levels where you need to guide the different Mini Marios through a level to reach a toy box, creative and challenging boss fights against Donkey Kong, who is back in his original villainous role, well, sort of, he just wanted toys, and finally, plus and expert difficulty levels which unlock, offering even more challenging puzzle-solving tasks for you to complete. It's such a refreshing take on a familiar character and gameplay concept, but it succeeds so effortlessly because nothing in the game feels unnatural or forced. Your athletic moves that Mario can pull off feel like they stepped out of a traditional Mario platformer, so everything just kind of clicks into place. And when you fail, it's never in a case of frustration. It dances just along that line, and it's one of those puzzle games where just one more stage is readily apparent. It's a beautiful and fun title that expands upon a classic concept, but honestly, sometimes you don't really need to expand on an idea. Sometimes you just need to lean into what works, like our next game. Purchased at the same mystical Kmart that I got Fire Emblem at, Capcom Classics Mini Mix is a compilation title featuring 3 classic Capcom games from the NES: Strider, Bionic Commando, and most tantalizingly, Mighty Final Fight. Collectors will know that acquiring Mighty Final Fight on its NES cartridge original release is a foolhardy exercise, as a loose copy will regularly cost you over $250 today. But with Mini Mix, you can get those 3 classic games for $25 complete in box on the GBA. Gameplay is fun and varied. Strider tells the story of Strider Hiryu, with gameplay identical to the original NES release, You'll travel to a variety of levels, find data and information to help your mission, all while figuring out an ever-expanding plot of betrayal and espionage. Bionic Commando puts you in everyone's favorite grappling hook arm, allowing you to explore a wide variety of levels and fight against challenging enemies. And of course, Mighty Final Fight gives you an incredible beat-em-up experience that's a love letter to the original Final Fight, but 100% uses that reverence for the source material to make a truly enjoyable chibi battler that few games on the NES can stand up to. It's a magnificent collection and one that truly embraces the nostalgia and roots of the original 3 games in this collection. Our last game on the list embraces its roots as well, but does so by plussing the original experience in numerous ways. Starting with tactical strategy and ending with tactical strategy, the Game Boy Advance was truly the console that made me love that genre. And while the Shining Force series is something that I've long enjoyed, I only briefly played the originals on the Genesis and didn't really love the series until I played the remake, Resurrection of the Dark Dragon, on the GBA. With a gorgeous visual presentation and some subtle pluses to the original gameplay, like a ramping difficulty, added story aspects, new characters, and quality of life improvements that allow you to better strategize as you play. Everything the original did well, from its vast storyline to memorable characters, is done here as well. It's just done better. I've enjoyed the originals, and it's truly a landmark franchise where you can really see why Camelot was so coveted by Nintendo to become a trusted developer for their in-house franchises, like the aforementioned Golden Sun series, as well as the Mario Golf and Mario Tennis series. Shining Force, though, is a phenomenal tactical strategy game with memorable characters and a massive world to explore, and it does so much to improve upon games in the genre that were released at the time. Playing Shining Force is an exciting and fun experience, whereas games like the original Fire Emblem on the Famicom is significantly more methodical in its approach and can be perceived as kind of boring or dull. Shining Force is an incredible franchise, starting all the way back in the early 90s and continuing through to today with new releases. But if you want to see where the tactical strategy aspect of the series all began, Resurrection of the Dark Dragon is a great place to do that. The Game Boy Advance, this little guy right here, is one of my all-time favorites. I hope you enjoyed this look back at 10 incredible Game Boy Advance games that I keep coming back to. And much like my 3DS video from a couple of months ago, this is by no means an exhaustive list. There will be multiple entries in the Game Boy Advance series, just like there's going to be for the DS, the 3DS, the GameCube, the PS2 when I eventually get to it. There are so many incredible games. These are just games that I'm playing right now, games that I dig that I wanted to talk about. I didn't add anything from Castlevania, from Pokemon, Wario, and that's just the big name ones. There's plenty of licensed games I dig, lots of obscure titles that are being overlooked that I haven't mentioned today. There's going to be more of these videos coming down the road, so please be sure to stay tuned for that. That, however, is of course where you come in. Let me know in the comments down below, what are your favorite Game Boy Advance games? What are the ones that you keep coming back to? I'd love to know what they are. I'm sure there are some out there that I've completely overlooked that I don't know as well as I know these games. I would love to hear from you what those games are. Hey, if you're new around here and you haven't done so already, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm doing a couple videos a week. I'd love to have you stick around for a while. Big thank you to my patrons and channel members you guys are seeing on screen right now. I couldn't do any of this without them. I truly appreciate their support. They're incredible people, and I thank them so much for what they do for the channel. Until next time, folks, I've been Jay. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.